everybody, to the 11th episode of the Burnout series, brought to you today by the letter M. Of course, M stands for Martinsville, which was very raced this week. And this week's race was a pretty okay one, I guess. I mean, a lot of people said this race was a lot better than last year's Martinsville races, which, I mean, sure. The final race in the short track sweep was a pretty alright one. Probably had to do with it raining earlier in the week, but, I mean, the racing was still pretty good for Martinsville standards, and I think it was still a solid Martinsville race to sort of end the short track sweep. I mean, we got to see a lot of action on track, which, I mean, is normal for Martinsville. We usually see a lot of action on the track, so overall, yes, it was a pretty decent weekend. I mean, I've seen way worse, I guess, so I mean, you saw it in the title, I've seen worse, so yep, if you had to ask me one word that would describe this race weekend, it'd probably be eh. So yeah, first things first, of course, Kyle Larson scoring his second victory of the season, and yeah, if you ask me, did he really deserve that win? Eh. I mean, if you looked at it from the final couple laps, of course, yes, he did deserve it in those last couple laps. It was sort of him straight up outrunning Logano for the victory, so yeah, but in the long term, I'm kind of hesitant about it because he wasn't really up at the front for a big chunk of the race. So I know it's kind of a good comeback story, but at the same time, I prefer drivers that actually showed dominance throughout the race. I mean, yeah, it was still a good race, and I do think Larson definitely kind of deserved that victory to an extent. Sort of like his Richmond race. I mean, like, I think Byron deserved the Richmond win a little bit more. And this week, despite my fourth prediction in my 2023 NASCAR predictions, I did think that Stewart-Haas deserved that win. They kind of got screwed over in the later portions of the race, which, I mean, man, Stewart-Haas came in fighting this week. All four of their drivers were in the top 10 this week, and a lot of them were really showing some major prominence. Ryan Preece dominated the first stage, completely swept the first stage, leading every single lap in the race, and he was really showing promise in the second stage as well. And then he got hit with a speeding penalty and never recovered. I did say, I don't know if I said at the beginning of the year, but I do think Ryan Preece is probably their best driver in the future for Stewart-Haas. He does show a lot of prominence. He showed a lot of prominence in the Clash. He was really good in the Bristol Dirt Race, and he was really good this weekend at Martinsville. So, even though I do think that Stewart-Haas is not going to win a single race this year, give it some time. Maybe next year, Preece is going to be a dominant factor, because that's something I said earlier this year with Stewart-Haas Racing. They're kind of in that midpoint right now where the drivers are either still yet to break out or they're sort of past their prime. So, and right now, I know like Briscoe and Preece, they're going to be two of the best drivers in the sport in the coming seasons, but not just yet. They just need a little bit more time to break out. Another driver that was almost worth talking about, Denny Hamlin, nearly spoiled the party this weekend. Was definitely doing a lot more this weekend than he really has been throughout the season so far. So, nearly spoiled the party, but came up just short of scoring his first victory of the season and JGR's second consecutive victory of the year. I do think Hamlin's going to be winning a couple races this year, but not just yet. Yeah, overall, it was pretty alright racing. Martinsville, if you ask me, is a combination of pit strategy and maneuvering through lap traffic. So I think that's kind of what makes Martinsville really shine, is both pit strategy, kind of like Richmond, but also maneuvering through lap traffic, which you see a lot more of at Martinsville compared to other tracks. And with the track being a lot more close quarters and a lot more confined, I really think you really have to maneuver through lap traffic to be a prominent threat throughout the race. And especially in the later portions, you really get to see a lot of these drivers really show how well they are at passing lap cars and getting through the field. Because you don't cut through the field just once. You got to cut through the field multiple times. That's what makes Martinsville really good. And this week was a pretty good race. Like I said, pretty alright. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore, but other than just those little bits here and there, and just those other minor incidents, really wasn't much noteworthy stuff, except for something that was honestly kind of ridiculous. A loose tire that was on the front straightaway, and NASCAR took well over a minute to find it. And I love how NASCAR tries to brush it off like, oh, we don't see what's on the TV. Like, you may see it on the TV, but we don't see it. It was literally right in front of the flag stand, and you couldn't see it? You're telling me nobody saw that loose tire right on the front stretch with the race official looking directly at it? Oh my gosh. So you're telling me NASCAR could instantly throw out a caution for a driver brushing the wall, which you saw last year in the All-Star race, but it takes you well over a minute to throw out a caution for a tire you're looking directly at? Is that really the hill you want to die on? For all the great things we've been seeing in NASCAR, there's always just been these minor incidents that just gets put on blast by the entire community. It's honestly kind of sad, because I know NASCAR is better than this. Man. Alright, so that was really much everything for the Cup race. Overall, I'll rate it an out of 10. I mean, a lot of people said it was much better than last year's races, and I kind of agree. I mean, the spring race last year was sort of rained, had a bit of rain issues, so it kind of affected the track, and then Martinsville in the fall was because of playoffs, and it kind of made it lame, even though everyone was blinded by Chastain's extremely insane move at the end of the race. Alright, now moving on to the rest of the weekend, of course, for the Xfinity, John Hunter Nemechek scores his second victory of the year, which happened to also be both times I predicted him to win.
You're doing a great job! A great job!
I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I tried focusing on the Xfinity race. Not really much noteworthy stuff, I guess, aside from, for the second time this year, a driver doing their burnout caused their car to go on fire, which, like I said when Zane Smith did at Coda, that's epic. And then lastly for the truck race, Corey Heim scoring his first victory this season from a rain-shortened truck race. But this weekend was special for the truck race, as it was the very first time we got to see rain tires at a short track. And NASCAR was too scared to actually use them. We had rain tires, but we still ended up shortening the race due to the rain. What's the point of the rain tires then? It's like that meme where you have all those pointless things in the world. There's another pointless thing you can add to that meme. NASCAR and rain tires, because they're too scared to actually use them. And then lastly, I think the other thing was Carson Hocevar, you know, being Carson Hocevar, doing completely stupid things. Like, really? I love you, man. It's like every driver I love and just love being fans of always just do the stupidest things on the planet a lot of the times. So Carson, really? Really? You know, you just... Not only did you fail to wreck the guy you tried to wreck, you spun yourself out, but then you lost 2 laps. So that was a pretty okay weekend. I mean, I predicted the Xfinity driver right. For the umptillionth time, the driver I predicted to win the Cup race finished second, and then I don't even know where Kyle Busch finished in the truck race. Probably would have won if it wasn't for it being rain shortened. Pretty good Martinsville weekend. Alright, so before we move on, we got some other things to talk about, of course, so don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I can't think of any other jokes, so you're just going to be stuck with that right now. Alright, moving on. Alright, so we got a couple other things to talk about this weekend, of course. First things first, probably the biggest thing to talk about this weekend was Chase Elliott finally returning to NASCAR after being out for an injury for the past couple months. He's back. He was back this weekend at Martinsville. Managed to finish 10th in the race, which I think is going to definitely help NASCAR in the ratings in the coming weeks, because Chase Elliott, he is really carrying the sport right now. I feel like that's why a lot of people watch the sports, because of Chase Elliott. So hopefully we get to see more entertaining drivers like Chase Elliott with a major fan base. I mean, Ross is kind of getting up there in fan favorite drivers, but right now Chase Elliott is the fan favorite driver, and his return was very over advertised by NASCAR, because they're just, we want to make everyone know Chase Elliott's in this race. Like, yeah, I'm aware. I've seen the 400 other advertisements you've been putting around all over Twitter. So another thing to talk about also coming out this week was last week I mentioned Cody Ware was arrested for assault. He did get out, but he is back in custody, probably for a while. I have no idea how long he's going to be in jail, but he did not race the 51 this weekend. I did mention last week that Zane Smith's name was thrown around as a potential replacement, It turns out he was the replacement this weekend at Martinsville. This coming weekend at Talladega, it's going to be J.J. Yaley in the 51, with Riley Herbst in the 15, which you mentioned in my last video. I predicted that Riley Herbst was going to be the driver of the 51 from here on out, which kind of is. I mean, he's driving the 15 this weekend at Talladega, so probably from beyond Talladega, I'm predicting it's probably going to be Riley Herbst in the 51, so. Alright, caution clock at the Cup Series. Woo! And then two more things. NASCAR has announced something that they've been doing. Back in 1998, they did the 50 greatest NASCAR drivers of all time to celebrate the 50th anniversary of NASCAR. So for the 75th anniversary, they're going to be adding 25 more people to that list. They've already announced 6 as of this recording. Tony Stewart, Casey Kane, Mike Stefanik, Randy LaJoie, Kyle Larson, and Greg Biffle, as well as the 7th driver that's probably came out during the editing. So, yep, overall, the first 6 drivers, 7th one, I have no idea who it is because they haven't announced it yet, is a pretty solid first 6 drivers. Tony Stewart, of course, being a 3-time champion, Casey Kane winning the Coke 600 several times, and just being an overall pretty good driver. Mike Stefanik being a legend in the modified series. Randy LaJoie being a 2-time Busch Series champion. Kyle Larson because Kyle Larson. And Greg Biffle because he's won both Truck and Xfinity Championship, as well as spilling his group punch a dozen times. So, there's definitely a lot of drivers that I feel like could be the last couple drivers on the list. If you ask me, if Randy LaJoie can make the list of the 75 greatest drivers of all time, there is literally no reason Johnny Benson should be on this list as well. I mean, he is a Truck and Xfinity champion as well. Pretty solid first 6 drivers. Can't wait to see who the 7th driver is. But there's definitely going to be some obvious answers like Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards, the Busch brothers. I don't know, Joe Nemechek. But yeah, pretty solid first couple drivers on that 75 greatest drivers of all time list, which is pretty much an addition of the 50 drivers they added in 1998. Alright, and then for the last announcement for this week, just announced on the day I started recording this, was NASCAR is announcing some new plans to hopefully head to a net zero carbon emission by 2035. And saying net zero carbon emission, a lot of people read that and think that NASCAR is going woke. And if you ask me, no it freaking isn't. Being more environmentally sustainable isn't woke or NASCAR turning liberal or whatever. It's just like, really? How dare NASCAR be a little bit more environmentally friendly for the future? Because, I mean, I feel like a lot of the controversy is kind of ridiculous because nowhere in this said anything about electrical cars. And that's what a lot of people jump straight towards, is that NASCAR is going to be running electrical cars. Nowhere on that list did it say NASCAR was running EV cars. So, a lot of the things they've been working on is a brand new, more renewable fuel, EV charging ports at NASCAR facilities, and working on more renewable energy, which NASCAR already does. NASCAR has a lot of solar panels at a lot of their racetracks, and a lot of the energy there is solar. So I don't know what NASCAR fans are really crying about, because overall, I feel like this is definitely going to help NASCAR in the future and stay with the times. Because that's why I hear a lot of arguments about, oh, NASCAR is bad for the environment. That's why we got to get rid of it. It's like, NASCAR's trying to reduce their carbon footprint, which, I mean, yeah, it's kind of silly to an extent, but at the same time, if it means my sport lives to see another day, I'm fully behind it. So yeah, that's all the stuff that came out of this week. If I missed anything, specifically if it came out between Tuesday through Thursday, keep in mind, always remember that this is recorded on Tuesday, so if there was some big news that came out late Tuesday or Wednesday, I did not see it because it has not come out since I have recorded this video. So don't go in the comments, oh, why did you not talk about this? Because I didn't see it! Alright, before we go, we got our Talladega predictions. We go to the big boy track this weekend. We started small, and now we're going big. So, yeah. First things first, we only got 2 races this weekend, Xfinity Cup. For the Xfinity Series, I'm actually going to be going with a first-time winner this weekend. I'm actually going to be going with Sheldon Creed winning his first race of his career. Finally for RCR. I was going to predict Austin Hill, but I decided, let's go a little bit more bold this week, because I feel like Austin Hill's like the easy answer. Let's do something a little bit more bold and brash, and not belong in the trash, even though Austin Hill's like leading the points right now. Alright, And lastly, for the Cup Series, I gotta go with Brad Keselowski because he has always been a dominant threat throughout the Talladega races in the past. And this weekend, I'm predicting he is finally gonna bring that number 6 car to victory lane for the first time as an owner driver. I mean, we got to see number 6 car in 2019 nearly won the Talladega race. So this weekend, he does go on to win his first race for RFK, which is his own team that he owns. And he's finally going to win his first race as an owner driver. So, yep. That's it for this weekend. I had a little bit more of a script this time, but I still feel like I barely talked about anything. So, yep. See you guys next week for the Talladega video. And hopefully it's good and not a complete train wreck. Thank you guys for watching, and good night. I'm not going to pull the trigger because I love you guys. Mwah.